Oh, this was really sad.
Franchesca, just on that point, what crime did Trump commit?
It was financial crimes. It was white collar crimes. That is exactly what they charged him. He was convicted on.
What was the crime?
It's New York State law.
No, I understand. What was the crime?
It is New.
Francesca,
I don't even like it. It is
hang on, Mark,
he just got convicted on 34 counts.
Francesca, what was the crime?
Of like cooking the actual books.
What was the crime?
Hello, friends. Welcome to the YouTube channel. Listen, I got a good one for you today. We're going to do a reaction video to this discussion here. It's gone viral, has about 1.6 something million views in it. So we have Piers Morgan with 4 different individuals here on the panel. What we have is we have Kevin O'Leary, Mark Geragos, Michael J. Knowles, and also Franchesca Fiorentini is her name is, I think. And what they're discussing here is what happened with Donald J. Trump, the verdict and everything else. And she's sharing her perspective. She's sharing how she feels about it. She's rejoicing. But we have these 3 men. You know, they're not all Trump supporters, apart from Michael Knowles. Kevin O'Leary is more like a businessman. He is a lawyer. He's actually a Democrat himself. But he's looking at this thing for face value and saying, there's really something else going on here. Shenanigan is the word that he used. Anyway, she is going to be in serious trouble because I don't think she was ready for this discussion. Anyway, we're going to take a listen to this. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. We're not going to react to the entire thing, so I'm going to take a few clips, cut a couple things off, but we're going to focus on some of the main ideas that were being discussed. So make sure you share your thought and perspective with me in the description below. Without further ado, let's get to it.
Francesca, my question for you is, I understand how joyous you must be feeling that Donald Trump has been convicted because he slept with a porn star 20 years ago and may have shuffled some business papers about it. But why is it good for America that one of your 46 presidents has been treated in such a humiliating manner over something so trivial? And why do you guys not see that this might help him rather than hinder him in the election?
I happen to believe, Piers, that it's good for America when you hold the person who has the highest office in the land to the standards of the American law. And in this case, New York State law, where he committed these crimes. I happen to believe that it is a telltale sign of coming totalitarianism, fascism, skirting of the law when you allow a president to simply do whatever he wants and actually never hold him accountable. But look, the reality is this, is that these aren't crimes that were on the books in every single state. These are crimes that are on the books in New York State, as we talked about, all right? And so he knew exactly what he was doing. In fact, this is the most important part, is that David Pecker of the National Enquirer refused to keep on paying his hush money payments because the dude was tired of getting paid back in expired Trump stakes. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do it this time.
You know, we're only a couple minutes in, and you can tell, I mean, just a few seconds in her discussion. Look at the panel. Look at these guys. You could see their face. Look at the facial expression. You could tell, like, oh, poor souls. We feel completely sorry for her, but we have to let her speak. And the crazy thing is, the more she speaks, the worse it gets. So they're allowing her a whole lot of grace here, but she's digging a big hole for herself. You see what happened in a minute.
Especially not with a porn star. And so Michael Cohen had to do the payments on behalf of Donald Trump. Michael Cohen already spent 3 years mostly on house arrest, but he was already sentenced to 3 years over this. This is squarely Trump's making. This has nothing to do with his base. It has nothing to do with protecting American democracy like happened on January 6th, according to them. This has to do with Trump making his bronzer-stained bed with a porn star, trying to cover it up, and then getting caught doing it.
And out of interest, before I go to Michael, out of interest, why is Bill Clinton able to have sex with an intern in the Oval Office when he's president and lie to the American people about it on national television? And why is he able to pay off Paula Jones $850,000, 4 times as much, 5 times as much as the Trump payment to Stormy Daniels, to get rid of a sexual harassment claim, again, while he's president? And he has no criminal court record. Is that deemed to be better than what happened with Trump and Stormy?
Huge question, right? So if you're going to address Trump on this matter, right, why did other presidents, such as Bill Clinton, who did this same thing, there's really no difference. As a matter of fact, he had an intern and he did this in the overall office while married. We understand that. This was morally wrong. But again, you didn't prosecute the man for this, right? All Americans decided to move on, right? Why is Trump getting the books thrown at him when Bill Clinton did the exact same thing and we just let it go? And she had an NDA as well. She got paid $850,000. That was okay. And that question is massive. I want to see what she says.
I don't think anyone is making that case, Piers. I'm
asking you, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Or any predator. The difference is that he didn't cook the books financially using his own, using back channels in order to pay.
So paying somebody off who says you sexually harassed her, paying nearly $1 million while you're the president of the United States, and then having sex with an intern in the Oval Office and lying about it, that's fine because he's a Democrat.
Piers, only...
Yeah, you could tell. Look at her. She's having a hard time already. She's... you could tell. There's smoke in her brain going on right now.
He's a Democrat.
Piers, only
Franchesca?
the leftists in your mind are making that argument.
Sorry?
Only the leftists in your mind?
I said only the Democrats and the leftist mob in your mind are making that argument that you're opposing to it. I will say this about Stormy Daniels. I think it's incredible that she accepted $130,000 from Michael Cohen because honestly...
She's going to try to make a joke, but the joke didn't land very well, but she's going to try.
If I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, no matter what the circumstances, let's say I had mad cow and then I did DMT on an empty stomach. If I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, there is no amount of money you could pay me to keep quiet about it because I would never tell a single soul. I would fake my own death and move to the Galapagos and pretend to be a bird.
I mean, I would say it's very unlikely you would ever get the offer, but you do look quite like Karen McDougal, funny enough.
Anyway, she's gonna miss that. She's gonna think that he's trying to insult her, but in reality, that was a compliment. Watch this.
Oh, so I'm not cute enough to.
No, I just said you are. I said you're very much in his.
I love that line.
Actually, it's a compliment. Yes.
Yeah, it was actually a compliment. Go to Michael. Michael, look, I do think there's a
you know. Nobody else has talked yet. We got to the question that was asked, but she's already cooked. You could tell she's roasted, but she's trying to keep her cool. But she knows she's toast.
Ridiculous double standard here that will come back and bite the Democrats for the reasons that Mark Garagos said about historically. You know, you've seen this coming a mile off, where both parties starting to ratchet up this concept of kind of going after each other's leaders in criminal courts. I mean, you see this normally in banana republics, not in the United States of America. And it really does worry me as someone who loves America and loves Americans, what this is leading to. Because if all that happens in each term of office is one party trying to incarcerate the other's leader, I don't know where that leaves America in a few years' time.
Good point.
Well, this will only come back to bite Democrats if they lose their grip on power, and obviously they don't think that they will. This is why President Biden the other day, when he was walking out of a press briefing, was asked, Mr. President, Donald Trump says that you are imprisoning him because he's your political rival. What do you say to that charge?
Well, I'll stop you there. We have the clip. Let's play the clip.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir? Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign?
I mean, you look like Jack Nicholson in The Shining at the end of that. But yeah, I mean, Michael, to pick up your point there, that's the clip you're referring to.
Yes, and it's pretty clear this is not a man who thinks that he has to be accountable to the American people. When you look at the federal charge against Trump, there was a poll that came out when that charge was brought that showed 62% of Americans think that it's primarily politically motivated. They just don't seem to care. And so this has been a ratcheting up, as we've all noted on the panel, of trends that have been built up for some years now. Some would say going back to Richard Nixon. But certainly in the early Trump campaign, the Democrats tried to stop him from being president by spying on him and cooking up fake intelligence, ironically enough, with Russia. And that didn't work. Then they tried to throw him out by impeaching him twice.
Look at her head. It's almost like, is there something he's saying here that you don't agree with? Look at her head the whole time. It's like, as Michael knows, actually laying out those facts, but he's actually telling the truth. instead of her processing what is being said, look at her face.
Intelligence, ironically enough, with Russia, and that didn't work. Then they tried to throw him out by impeaching him twice. That didn't work. Then they tried to kick him out by rigging the election and changing all the voter rules, in some cases in contravention of state constitutions leading up to that election. That did get him out of office, and he did leave office, but then he didn't go away. He kept running again. So then they indicted him 4 times. Now they've convicted him. They're going to threaten to throw him in prison. Pretty soon they're going to threaten to send him to St. Helena. But this has absolutely nothing to do with the law. As was noted earlier, at most you're talking about a misdemeanor that would have already expired under the statute of limitations. I'm not even convinced that there was really a misdemeanor that Trump committed. So my fellow panelist here is celebrating that the rule of law has been vindicated and overturned 234 years of American legal tradition. I would challenge her to see if she could possibly articulate how and what crime Trump committed, because so far Alvin Bragg, the DA, has failed to do so. The judge in the case, Judge Merchan, has failed to do so. And they can't do it because Trump didn't commit any of the crimes for which he's been convicted.
Now, I hope you heard the question that was asked. Now, with all the stuff that she is celebrating and the left are happy about the conviction and so on, they have yet to actually tell you what the crime actually was. Actually, there were 3 different crimes that the judge says you guys don't have to agree on either of them, right? It's kind of crazy. Like, no matter what Trump did, he would have been found guilty. Let's just say he did not say this was a legal fee, right? But he was still being found guilty for using cash money. If he was saying that this is for the purpose of election, they would have caught him for election fraud. But he used it for the purpose of business, which was his own money. They still ended up using it against him, saying that the intent was actually wrong. So they made a crime out of nothing in order for him to get Trump. But I want you to notice what's going to happen here, because now she's going to try to answer the question, what exactly is the crime? Watch her face.
Well, let's just ask quickly before I go to Kevin. Francesca, just on that point, what crime did Trump commit?
It was financial crimes. It was white collar crimes. That is exactly
Which
what
one,
they
though?
charged him. He was convicted on.
What was the crime?
It's New York State law.
No, I understand. What was the crime?
It is New.
Francesca,
I don't even like it. It is
Well,
literally
hang on, Mark.
he just got convicted on 34 counts.
Francesca, what was the crime?
Of like hooking the actual books.
What was the crime?
You are not allowed. So you are not allowed to use your own financial, like your own money, to pay off somebody, and then he logged it as something different. He logged it as just a regular payment, but he was actually paying off this porn star to keep quiet, which, if he hadn't been running for president, would not have mattered, but he was. And
He was paying his lawyer, so he had to document that as legal fees. So he was paying his lawyer for doing the job. And again, we have yet to tell the story whether or not that actually happened. I mean, that's beyond me. But again, she has no idea what she's saying, though.
Which, if he hadn't been running for president, would not have mattered, but he was. And so it impacted campaign finance laws in New York State. Okay, that is what Juan Merchan just oversaw this. Alvin Bragg brought these charges because Michael Cohen, his sister, was already sentenced to 3.
Somebody gonna have to help her out. And she keeps talking like she really thinks she nailed it, but really she just dug a big hole for herself, and she's about to be buried with the facts.
Years to do it.
Let's just go before Kevin. I'd be very, very, very patient. We'll come to you.
Look, I'm no expert. Let me just say, hang on,
No,
Michael.
Francesca.
I love it. I'm no expert. Like, you know when you done messed up, right? She's trying to backpedal. Like, I'm no expert. I wonder if she knew what she was coming on the panel for. Like, you should get a memo, right? Whenever you're invited, you should know what you're going to be discussing. At least bring your facts with you. I think you should bring some papers with you if you have to. It's okay. At least you know what you're talking about, or else you shouldn't be going. I will not show up in these discussions unless I know what I'm going to be talking about. Otherwise, I just make some noise on my channel.
Kevin, I'd be very, very, very patient. We'll come to you.
Look, I'm no expert. Let me just say, hang on, Michael.
Francesca.
You are no expert.
By the
That's
way.
right. The campaign finance laws.
Michael no say you are an expert.
Come to you.
Look, I'm no expert. Let me just say, hang on, Michael.
Francesca.
You are no expert.
By the
That's
way.
right. The campaign finance law is a federal law.
Hang on,
Anyway.
Francesca. I want to go to Mark. You're the lawyer. Is anything Francesca just said, is that actually the crime?
Look, let me just say, I like Franchesca a lot, and we probably agree on 80% of our worldviews. However, Francesca, the way you just described it, call me afterwards and I'll educate you, because that's not what happened. There was no theory that was given to the to the jurors. The jurors were told it could have been campaign finance, it could have been tax, it could have been false books. They were told they didn't have to specify, and specifically told they did not have to agree unanimously. That's what irks me. Lifelong Democrat, no fan of Trump, never voted for Trump, never will. But I will tell you, as somebody who has spent his entire career with kind of taking on unpopular causes and holding the government accountable, I have to tell you, I do that for a reason. And the reason is this kind of shenanigans, and that's the best light I can spin it, in the criminal courts has no place in a federal election.
No, I agree.
The campaign finance laws were federal, not state, and the state laws had nothing to do with it.
I feel bad for her, though, because, again, a lot of people that are talking about this, they don't really take time to understand what is being said and what is actually happening. Their hatred for Trump is the reason why they're even talking, but they're not really examining the facts.
Hang on. I want to go to Kevin. Been waiting very patiently. Kevin.
Now, Kevin O'Leary is going to share why Alvin Bragg is like the kingmaker. In other words, Alvin Bragg's persecution of Trump is only going to guarantee Trump's election. Watch this.
As a tool, and we're still debating that. But here's what's really interesting.
By the way, I hope you take a look at what she's doing. Her head is down. She's looking at her phone. She's trying to Google what actually is going on. She's trying to understand, oh, this is exactly what the crime is. She had no idea before she came on the panel. But the interesting thing is when Kevin O'Leary is done, Michael Note is going to come back and point out her behavior and expose how little understanding that she actually has. But he's going to do it in a very nice way, too. But watch this.
You know, as a tool, and we're still debating that. But here's what's really interesting. If Trump becomes president, I think he has a big debt to Alvin Bragg.
Right.
Alvin Bragg is the kingmaker.
Yeah.
He made Trump president by polarizing the country so much and motivating the base so much that in the last 42 hours, Trump has passed $60 million in fundraising. That's an all-time record for him. So what's happening here is this unusual time, and I understand that you may not like that as an unintended consequence if you're Alvin Bragg, but I think history will show he made Donald Trump president one more time. And that's just the way it is.
You know what? I completely agree. I think
Yes,
it's one of the
because-
most willful. I'll come to Franchesca for response. It seems to be one of the most willfully stupid acts of self-harm I've seen any political party commit. You had Trump right on his knees, done.
It was done.
And you've revived the rotting political corpse of this guy, and you've now got him roaring back to the White House. And the only thing, as Mitt Romney, of all people who hates Trump, and represents by absolutely the most moderate part of the Republican Party, when even he says Democrats think they can put out the Trump fire with oxygen, it's political malpractice. He's right. Because the only thing that could further guarantee a Trump victory is if they try and put him in jail on July the 11th, which, by the way, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, it's remarkable times. We haven't seen polls out since the verdict, and so everybody's waiting to see what happens with the unintended consequence of this in terms of just independent voters. And so here's the thing to realize. If you polled 1,000 independent voters, and they will decide the election, most people agree with that in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, et cetera. I bet you, and we've had the same on this panel, we're debating it, 99% of them have no idea what this case was about at all, and have no idea what exactly he did, and I'm not sure they care. The fact that more than half of them think it's politically motivated is unsettling.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, will get finished off in the appellate system. But this is a remarkable time in American history, and not that great for the American brand, as you started talking about at the beginning. This is more like a Venezuela kind of Cuba, Banana Republic story. You got the porn star. All this stuff is really not what G7 countries do to their leaders.
I completely agree. This is Francesca. I just don't get. We see you're laughing, but Mitt Romney, for Mitt Romney to come down so squarely on the side of Trump.
I do. I do want to just say, look, so the crimes were falsifying business records. Now, the reason I didn't know that before is because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not the journalist who is anchoring this entire show, who should have told you that it was falsifying business records.
Did she just blame Piers Morgan for her ignorance? she's something else.
Anchoring this entire show, who should have told you crimes were falsifying business records. Now, the reason I didn't know that before is because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not the journalist who is anchoring this entire show, who should have told you that it was falsifying business records. Now, on the other
because
point,
those aren't felonies.
I hear you that most Americans don't care about falsifying business records. I agree with Kevin and I agree with Piers. However, I will say this. Most Americans also are very much go on gut. And they don't like that a candidate is now a convicted felon. But moreover, this candidate is someone who, and it is not the crime, however we know, cheated on his pregnant wife with a porn star in a hotel in Lake Tahoe and then bragged about it and then tried to pay her to shut up and also paid another Playboy bunny to also be quiet about their relationship.
Bill Clinton had sex with an intern
people. You're
in
going
the
back to Bill
Oval
Clinton because
Office.
it's the only thing you have.
Well, it's not a bad thing to have.
You're going back. No one's
unlike
talking
Trump,
about Bill
he was
Clinton.
president at the time.
You know, I don't mean to pick on Franchesca too much here, but it's very telling that even the liberals who are going on television to defend this ruling
is going to throw her right under the bus.
Have to Google in the breaks to figure out what the crime was. And even then, I'm sorry to say, misrepresent what the actual supposed crime was.
Wow. Yeah, he had to do it. Look at her face. Oh, she's not too happy. Oh, no. You just exposed me on national television. But it's pretty interesting what's going on here. That's why you shouldn't go on national television talking about stuff that you do not understand.
Crime was, and even then, I'm sorry to say, misrepresent what the actual supposed crime was. The reason here that this has to take. Well, excuse me one second, Francesca. I'll just finish my point real quickly.
Books. That's the same thing.
Yeah. It's not a felony, not a crime, but anyway, that's a point for another time. The reason why even the great defenders of this conviction can't.
Happy Pride. I have no idea how that fits into the conversation at all. I don't know what that even means.
Yes, to you as well. The reason that they can't articulate this is because it's not really a crime. That's why they had to upend 234 years of precedent for this. And it gets back to a point that you made earlier, Piers, and that you made, Kevin, which is that Alvin Bragg really overplayed his hand. Sure, he overplayed his hand to some degree, but what else were they going to do? Donald Trump was always going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. A lot of people feel that he was gypped in 2020. He's the biggest guy in the party. It was going to happen. And Trump poses a real threat to the liberal establishment. He's not a Mitt Romney type Republican. He has different views from the so-called uniparty on things like trade, on things like immigration, and things like foreign policy and war. Trump posed a major threat. That's why they took such extraordinary measures for the last 8 years to take this guy out. They weren't able to do it politically. They weren't even really able to do it at the ballot box. So what's left? The only thing left to do is to try to throw him in prison so that he can't campaign for the election. I agree, it's backfiring.
This is not a federal case, Michael. You know that. It's not even a federal case. Why do you think that it's not a DOJ case? It's not a Biden case.
Trump, in the next video, we're going to see Trump showed up at the UFC. This one here is epic. Again, we're talking about the guy that is supposedly a criminal, a convicted felon. But people are cheering him on, boy.
Reacted.
Pretty cool for Sean Strickland to have a moment there with Donald Trump after a win.
President Trump, you're the man, bro. It is a damn travesty what they're doing to you. I'll be donating to you, my man. Let's get it done.
Wow.
I mean, that followed the entrance. Sorry, Mark?
By the way, Piers, if I have spent the last 2 days having people talk to me at a conference I'm at, telling me that one of the phenomenons on TikTok, as Kevin invoked it, is people saying, I'm voting for the felon, I'm voting for the felon.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you want a poll? I'll give you a poll. Take a look at what's happening there at the UFC fight and take a look at what's happening on TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, we're watching the end. This is when he came in. I mean, the place went completely nuts. And the trouble is, Franchesca, I spent a lot of time in New York and LA. I have a place in LA and spent a lot of time working in New York. But I also do a lot of crime documentaries, ironically, which take me down to rural Florida, rural Texas, Alabama, places like that. And let me tell you, none of them agree with you. They all agree with that crowd at the UFC. And if I was a Democrat, I'd be quite unnerved that you've thrown the kitchen sink at this guy. And this is how a lot of the public are reacting.
Ouch.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense that he'd be cheered at UFC. I mean, you know, it's a
She doesn't know. She's again going to mess up. Listen.
sport full of actors, and we have this guy who's been pretending to be a serious politician for years.
She said your UFC is a sport full of actors. She actually thinks the UFC is the wrestling match and, like, you know, Raw and WrestleMania and so on. Yeah, she's confusing it with wrestling.
Years now. Look, the
Well, they're not
important thing
actors
about that
in.
interview that
Sorry,
he gave
hang
to
on,
Fox
hang on.
News.
You're not besmirching
The important
UFC.
thing about the
Hang
Fox
on,
News.
hang on. Fact check. You're thinking WWE, the actors. The UFC, they're real fighters.
Ouch.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I don't have. Cool. Good. I'm glad. Look.
Okay, we're done. I can't. It gets worse. And again, I'll link it in the description below. It's an amazing interview, by the way. I think they've shown her so much grace. She came here trying to roast Donald Trump and trying to make Trump look as bad as she possibly could, but she ended up making herself look bad, make Trump's look good, and she also shows to the rest of the panel that she had no idea what she was talking about. But I tell the left this: you have to be very careful how you treat your enemy, because what's happening now is, like, especially in America, especially if the man is not as guilty as you make him to turn, at least as guilty as you're trying to paint him to be, people are gonna pick up on that, and they're going to create a whole other image of him. Why Trump is loved so much is because you've tried to demonize Trump so much. Why is Trump become the person that he is? They call him the Teflon Don for a reason. The more attention you give Trump, he consumes that, he uses it as energy, and he comes back and bite you. And what's happening now, the people like myself and many of us who are not so much for Trump, we now became Trump supporters because you've gone too hard and you've gone too far. You've done too much. In so doing now, people like myself are supporting him, and his numbers are all the way up there. Again, let me read something to you and I'll bring this video to a close. I don't want to make it any longer than that. I don't like to make any videos over 25 minutes long, but I think this discussion was really good. But here is the thing. In verse 16, I want you to read this. And I love this. And again, this is talking about the principle here is that when a person is a just man, right? I mean, I'm not saying Trump is sinless. I'm not saying he fits that perfectly, but I want you to think about the principle. It says, for a just man falleth 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. Now, I want you to think about this. The just man, he's a just man, and yet he makes mistake. The first thing you are hearing here, you will say, well, the man is just. What is a just man? The Bible says in 1 John 1, verse 9, the Bible says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. A just man is a man who's been justified by God. So when a man has been justified by God, God called him just. He's a saint. All right. He's been saved by the grace of Christ. His sins are forgiven. That is a just man. Even though that is the case about the man, yet he falls. How many times? 7 times. And when you read the word 7 in the Bible, what you're going to come to the conclusion of is that 7 is the number of completion. God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the 7th day. So 7th means complete. So in other words, this is a man. Even though he's a just man, he still falls. He still makes mistake, right? But the crazy thing that happens next is the fact that he rises up again. So here's the thing. The principle is this. Because a man is fallen, because a man has made mistake, because a man has done this and that, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of the story for him. He can rise up again. But the enemies of Trump, because they decided to rejoice over the fall of Trump, for example, rejoice not when thine enemy falleth, let not thine heart be glad when he stumbleth. So it's saying, let's have a party because Trump has fallen. Let's have a party because the man has fallen. But what you fail to realize, he is rising up again. So because they are rejoicing, look what the Bible says, lest the Lord see it and it displease him and turn away his wrath from him. Look at that. God says, I'm going to bless the man who's fallen because you're rejoicing because he's fallen. You should not be rejoicing. Why? Because the Bible tells us that let him who thinks that he stands take heed lest he falls. The principle is don't ever get excited about somebody else's demise, regardless of how much you like or dislike the individual. Because what tends to happen over time, you either will fall or that individual, after they have fallen, they're going to learn from their mistake. They're going to get up and dust stuff and they will rise back up again. They will be in a position that is much higher than where they were before. And you're going to look back and say, what in the world did happen here? And you're going to find yourself placed behind them or even under the control of the individual. It's actually a principle that you should not, even Christians, we should notice. Don't get excited because of what's happening to Donald Trump in a negative way. Don't get excited because what tends to happen is this. He is going to rise up again. Anyway, friends, I want to say this. This young lady here needs help. She has no idea what she walked herself into, but she tried so hard. She tried so hard to see if she can articulate her view and perspective in the best way that she knew how. But she did try, but I'll tell you what, she failed miserably. Anyway, share your thought and perspective with me. I want to hear from you. If you like this video, like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. I think Piers Morgan is amazing, though. He's really good with it. I appreciate the way he brings these different views together and allow them to debate. And then at the end of the day, just let them roast each other and then come to a conclusion himself. But I like the way he challenges people. So, which is a great. And I wish more people from the mainstream media will do that. But forget about that. Take that statement back. Have a good one. Bye.